Hello and welcome to We Are Just Two Idiots. I am your host, Steve Michaels. You can stream all our podcast episodes on YouTube and Spotify. You can follow us on social media at Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook at We Are Just Two Idiots to watch highlight reels and give comments and feedback. I'm joined always by my co-host, Duke Ross. Duke, it's been like close to 2 weeks since we've been on the mic. Anything major going on? Yeah, it's been a long time. Anything major going on in your life you'd like to share with your listeners?
Oh, thanks for leading me into that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've just opened a restaurant, Foxtail, in the Glenview house. And, we have another one that's in Des Plaines, Foxtail on the Lake. This is one in Glenview. Going through friends and family, so we've had a couple. We've got another one tomorrow. And that's why I look half asleep, because if you've never opened a restaurant, it's a big process. But, I have a couple of things before we get into all this. Where are your sleeves? Why are you trying to copy my look with no sleeves?
Ella told me that I should try to, be like, like you a little bit more and go tank top, show off the
Fantastic,
guns.
relax. And, we were just talking about this before we started recording. I asked if you drink coffee, and you said, yeah, you have your Dunkin'. And I am not going to lie. I have coffee here, and you said you hate Starbucks. Starbucks is pretty much the only thing I'll drink when I go physically out of my house. But I feel as if the greatest scam in the world of literally scams is coffee makers. I have an espresso, I have a Keurig, and I have at the restaurants, we always have coffee makers, and it's pods, very high-end pods. And I literally don't think they work. I think it's the biggest scam. I don't know if anyone's ever scientifically tested, like the Seinfeld episode with the yogurt, and if it has fat or not. I don't think these pods have caffeine in it. I think it's all bullshit. When I go to Starbucks, I get a cold brew, or I'll get a cappuccino, the flat whites, and it wakes me up. I feel it. I actually, I have a low tolerance for things. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, so my tolerance levels, when I hit caffeine, I start getting a little bit dizzy, like if I have too much. I don't ever feel my Nespressos, my Keurigs, I don't feel shit from it, and I don't believe it works, even at the restaurants. And I want someone to take this to the lab and find out if there's actually caffeine in these pods, because they say there is, but I don't believe it.
We're going to have to run that experiment.
Well, what do you think about your crappy Dunkin'?
I don't drink anything outside the house for coffee. I refuse to go to Starbucks. Sorry, their CEOs.
Political. I'm sure it's political.
Their CEO's worth $35 billion, I think. I think his name's Howard Schultz. He charges $8 to $10 for a cup of coffee, and then he can't pay his Starbucks employees livable wages. Instead, you go to the checkout stand, and he asks you to tip them for pouring you a fucking cup of coffee after you just spent $8 on a cup. No.
Everything doesn't have to be political.
It's not political. It's common sense, and I guess that's what's all about capitalism. It's supply and demand.
The Starbucks employees all get full insurance.
That's great.
Most of them work there because of the actual insurance they offer.
That's good.
How much do they pay their employees an hour?
I don't know. I'm sure it's
I don't know either.
Wage.
So
I'm sure.
How do you know if it's not a livable wage?
Okay. So did you see when they were striking and protesting in Seattle? They were protesting because of livable wages. So I'm assuming it's a minimum wage. Duke, are you challenging me to do research on this? Because you know how much I like to do research, especially political stuff.
I see Starbucks employees working there for years and years and years. And one, they're thrilled. Two, I think they make far more than minimum wage. Not what you think is going to be great, or most people, but for hourly. But most importantly, they get incredible benefits. They do.
Yeah. They're on SNAP, or they're living in their parents' basement, or they're getting some kind of handout. I will stick with
I hope you don't go to a Starbucks now, because you're going to find something horrifying in your Starbucks.
I don't.
That's not cream.
This is my Dunkin' Donuts from my Keurig. I buy a 30-pack from Publix.
There's no caffeine in it. I'm telling you. I've been drinking it this morning. I feel like shit, and this is the truth. I'll drink Starbucks. I'll get a Starbucks, and it could be in the morning. I go to the restaurant, and all day long, I feel great. I'm like, you know what? I think it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to be here till 10, 11. I'll just make one, and it's a beautiful machine. The machine, it's a $10,000,
Sure.
stunning. It's silver, it's shiny, it's unbelievable. And these pods come straight from Italy. The guy that brings us, he said, Duke, he's Italian. I've got to show you this machine, and it's in Italy. Have you been to Italy? He tells me, and he's like, this is a $1 million machine where they produce these pods, and he showed me. And it's wonderful, right? And then I drink the pods, and I'm more tired after I drink it than when beforehand. So there's something bullshit, and we're all it's a scam. Go ahead, I'll figure this out. It's gonna go in front of Congress.
He's full of shit. They're making them in China or Thailand or something like that. You know it, and I know it. All right.
Possible.
But back to Duke's major announcement. I have been to Foxtail Lake in the Des Plaines location numerous times. Best restaurant in the suburbs. Awesome food, awesome service.
Thanks, Steve.
It's not just because you're one of my best friends. I think I told you about it actually, but you didn't even know about it. I'm the one that told you about it when you're up at Main Street. So
it's true.
Yeah, awesome. People in the suburbs that say I don't want to drive into the city, they don't need to drive in the city. They can go to Des Plaines and go to Foxtail to Lake. Ella and I are really looking forward to getting back home again to go to your one in Glenview. I had several good times at the Glenview house when I was, I guess, underage. But, All right.
My birthday was there. It's very surreal to be there.
Yes.
But we did a massive build-out. I can't say how much money, but
I've been watching the Instagram Reels. I talked to Adam and Sheetal. They said it was, and they tell me the truth on everything. They said it was phenomenal. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you. Proud of you.
Thanks.
All right, for today's episode, we are going to continue on with fantasy football, and we're going to just do positional rankings, starting with the quarterback position. Duke and I will provide our rankings via tiers. If you would like access to our rankings, feel free to DM us on our social media accounts, or, of course, you can email us at WeRJust2Idiots@gmail.com, and we can share with you our rankings via Google Drive. Duke, before, similar to our last episode on fantasy football strategies, for which got a lot of feedback on it. It was really, really encouraging. I am going to nerd it up even more. So, grab your uncaffeinated coffee. Be prepared to be bored, at least fake being interested. All right, here we go. Fake being interested. Because, for my rankings, I didn't use the typical variables that you see from ESPN, CBS Sportsline, SI, whoever it may be, right? I didn't look at pass TDs, passing yards, rush TDs, rushing yards. No. I decided as an engineer to use a data science approach and do what is called exploratory data analysis, or EDA for short. EDA is a systemic approach to analyzing data using statistical and visual techniques to uncover patterns, anomalies, and most importantly, relationships. So analyzing relationships is doing what data scientists call bivariate analysis. And that's when you look at relationships between two variables via something called a correlation matrix.
You may have lost me already. I'm not kidding.
All right.
You may have lost me.
Well, we're close. So the objective is to find out which variables correlate to a target variable. And for which, if you listen to last episode, I said the most important variable in fantasy football was points was points per week, because we're trying to get a target in points per week. So after completing my EDA, the variables that showed the positive correlation break out into two categories: durability and efficiency. Well, what do I mean by that? So for durability, your fantasy quarterback can't score you fantasy points if he's not on the field. So I've decided to use the variable snaps per year as the key one to measure durability. For efficiency, if your quarterback is on the field, he needs to be producing points. So I've used the variable points per snap as the key one to measure efficiency. There's other variables that showed positive correlation, such as pass attempts, rush attempts per snap. I also used in my rankings. And I took into consideration some other things like improvement or regression from year to year, of course, age, and any off-season moves that might impact the QB's performance. I used the sample size data set of the past 3 years, so 2023 to 2025, because I think if you just look at 1 year, that's not going to be able to weed out any outliers or anomalies. So, Duke, I see you're leaning over there. I don't know if your eyes are closed.
I think they're
But-
just closed just because.
But that was a very, very small introduction into the Steve Michaels data science method of ranking these quarterbacks and how I did it.
Listening to that, I don't know if I needed Adderall or weed. Unfortunately, I don't do either, so I don't know what would have helped. But I got the listen. I think we all got it. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to ask me, Duke, what do you base your how do you base your rankings? How did you come up with it? And I'll go a little bit beyond their uniforms. I mean, there's some uniforms that I like more than others, but hearing everything, it's very similar. Is age equated? Well, I'm only caring about one year this year, so age doesn't really fall in unless it's the production's dropped off. Like Aaron Rodgers is 42, and his production is not where it was, 6-7 years ago when he was back-to-back MVPs. But I base it on whether they're injury prone. I base it on production, all the same things, I guess. I just can't use the big words you can.
All right. Well, I respect that. Do you want to do you want to go ahead and start with who you have as your tier 1 QBs?
I would. Listen, we're in disagreement. I think we should have started from the bottom up as opposed to the best down. But this is your show today, so I'm allowing you to dictate which direction. I think it's funnier if we started with the crappy, but we'll go with the top. So my tier 1.
Well, hold on. Duke is telling a true story. Before we started recording, Duke wanted to start from the lower tiers and go up. I told him, way too many listeners are getting bored by your rambling. We might, so they might shut off. We need to get to the highest ones first.
You just said people might not tune into the end. You didn't say they'd be bored by me. Now
I know. I'm calling it audible to try to make fun of you. But, yeah, I think we should start with the tier 1 and go down.
We're starting at the top. I told you I would, and I won't deviate away from that.
All right, let's hear it.
Standard deviation.
Duke, give me your tier 1 QBs.
I have listen, this is based solely on fantasy. This isn't based on, the level of quarterbacking I think they are. It might be different if you're just saying, who do you think is the very best quarterback?
No, this is fantasy. We're trying to help out listeners.
Fantasy, so.
All our listeners are emailing us and reaching out to us about, I need to win this league. Help me out, Steve, Duke, and that's what we're here to do today.
Right, well, my tier 1, there's just one quarterback. There's only one. Can you read it? There.
No, I can't read it. You write like a kindergartner. Say it out loud. Okay.
Josh Allen. That's it. Tier 1. There's only one quarterback in my tier 1. It's Josh Allen.
All right. Can I go with mine?
Yeah, go ahead. I think we both have the same reasons for why Josh Allen is. I'm sure Josh Allen is your number 1 quarterback.
But when we talk about tiers, we're saying you can have multiple quarterbacks per tier.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
But I have a quarterback at the top of tier 1, tier 2.
But do you have more quarterbacks in tier 1?
No, that's it.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's a problem. Duke and I think alike too much. I only had one quarterback in tier 1, too. And Duke didn't know this before this because we purposely – it is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, and I'm gonna provide context. If you have a tier 1 QB, you're looking at him to score more than 25 points a week or more. Josh Allen has scored 3 points more per week than the next highest QB in the past 3 seasons on average. He's number 1 in the most points. He's number 1 in points per snap. He's number 3 in total snaps. Number 6 in pass attempts. Number 6 in rushing attempts per snap. When you talk about value, if you get Josh Allen, you're looking. I think we said, Duke, you need in our league about 135 points per week, to win the league. With Josh Allen, it's almost. You can almost bank your 25 points per week, and you're ready at, 20% of that total for the week? Let me see that. I'm usually pretty good at math. Yeah, about 19%. And, I don't think anyone is even close to Josh Allen when it comes to quarterback ranking.
And look, for me, I have tiers, so to speak, in terms of stats, statistics, yardage, touchdowns, sure. And my breakdown, and Josh Allen's kind of an anomaly because he doesn't throw he's never had a great receiving core. He doesn't. He makes, receivers that aren't very good an awful lot better. But he very rarely, I don't know if he's ever thrown for more than 30 touchdowns, but he always gets you 10, 12, 14 rushing touchdowns. He combines that. He gets you the rushing yards. He's never, my tiers for the top quarterbacks, like the very, very best. If you can throw for 4,500 yards, that's the top tier for yards. I think there's been years Dak Prescott's thrown for 4,900 yards. When you get to 5,000, Matt Stafford, I think, if he did it last year, that tier is 4,500. The next tier for yards, in my mind, is 4,000. If you're throwing from 4,000 yards to 4,500 yards, that is that next level for tiers. When you're under, if you're 3,500 to 4,000, obviously 3,900 is better than 35, but that's that next tier. If you're under 3,500 yards, to me, you're almost useless, unless you are rushing and running for touchdowns, and that's where Josh Allen falls in. He's an anomaly. He's very rarely over 4,000 yards. He's never over, in that tier for touchdowns for me, basis is 30 touchdowns. If you're under 30 touchdowns, there's 10 guys that can throw 25 to 30. There's only a few guys that'll throw 30 to 35 and then 35 plus. But Josh Allen gets you a little bit of everything.
So you heard Duke just say that the reason why he talked about Josh Allen as his number one ranked quarterback and the only one in tier one. I didn't look at that stuff. I looked at durability and efficiency. He's number 3 in total snaps, and he was number 1 in points per snap. And there's other variables, of course, that I took into equation, but those two put Josh Allen easily as my number 1 ranked quarterback and in tier 1. Okay, Duke, what about tier 2? What about tier 2?
Tier 2, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks in tier 2.
All right, let me hear them.
So the top, and I don't know, I'm not trying to be controversial, just based off of last year, based off of the team, based off of where they're going to be going, I have Matt Stafford as my number 1 quarterback at tier 2.
Okay, so you ranked your quarterbacks within your tiers?
I did.
Okay.
So I have Matt Stafford, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, and then Justin Herbert. And, with those rankings, if I was going to rank who's the best quarterback in the NFL, I would probably say Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the NFL. But because Joe Burrow can't stay healthy, it's an impossible thing to have him ranked any higher when I have him. But it's very hard because his boom or bust, if Burrow's healthy with the receivers that he has, with the offense that he has, with an Illini running the ball for him, which is great for anybody, he will be probably the number 1 fantasy quarterback or number 2 fantasy quarterback overall. But on this list, he's kind of in the middle of tier 2. But Dak Prescott, I think 4 out of the last 5 years he stayed healthy, which is, what you keep talking about. But obviously, we're all worried about people that, stay on the field. But Prescott, always 4,500 yards. It's going to be 30 touchdowns plus. And moving into this next season with the 2 receivers he has and decent tight ends, he could be a massive boom. And then Matthew Stafford, why do I have him number 1 there? He had 40 plus touchdowns. He's the only one that did that, and it was a massive, massive year. So I get it. He's 38 years old. Generally speaking, outside of 1 year, he's on the field. He's playing. He's tough as hell. And even if something hurts, he's never, ever coming out. And if you look at the bottom of those tiers, you have Caleb Williams and Justin Herbert. And Caleb, obviously, we live in Chicago. Is there a little bit of fan loyalty there? Maybe. But with this offense, he could be massive. He is the bottom of tier 2. He could be the top of tier 2. And in our leagues, there is a win for having long touchdown passes. And he has more long passes than anybody in the league. And Justin Herbert, you talk about talent. He's 6'4", 6'5". He's fast. He's smart. And now he has an offensive coordinator that could lead him to, he made Tua Tagovailoa. I can't even say Tua. I'm too tired. Let's just stop with Tua.
Just Tua.
Tua was awesome for a couple years when he was healthy. What can Justin Herbert do? A lot.
Wow. So we're going to get off on a debate right off the bat. A lot of not disagreement, but we've got different rankings here. So I have. So before I start off, for tier 2, that's to me that QB is going to score you anywhere from 22 to 25 points per week or more, of course. But right now, if you were to take one of my quarterbacks in tier 2, I would have you bank 22 to 25 points per week in your projection.
And maybe most noticeably, if you saw, not in my tier 2 is Drake May.
Yeah, I have 7 quarterbacks in my tier 2, and I want to be very clear. Like, I don't have them ranked. I'm saying if you get one of these 7, you're going to get 22 to 25 points per week. And so that's how you should look at it, not at the individual quarterback level. I have, the first one I want to talk about is probably the most underrated fantasy football player in the past 3 years, and that's Jared Goff. Jared Goff is number 2 in points per week for the past 3 years, behind only, of course, Josh Allen. He's number 2 in snaps per year. He's number 1 in pass attempts. He is extremely underrated. I have him in tier 2. The next is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is number 4 in points per week, number 4 in snaps per year, number 3 in pass attempts. He consistently delivers. Next, I have Jalen Hurts. He's number 5 in points per week, number 10 in snaps per year, but he's number 5 in points per snap. If you take Goff, Mayfield, or Hurts, that is a very, very safe, consistent approach to taking a tier 2 QB because they've shown it the past 3 years that they deliver on a points per week basis. My next 3, I got Drake May. I think Drake May is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if he's not already. His fantasy point production increased by 90% from 2024 to 2025. He's number 8 in points per snap. He was the 3rd highest quarterback last year. So I've got Drake May in tier 2. Of course, the one guy that Duke and I do agree upon is Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has taken the most snaps per year in the past 2 years. He's number 8 in points per week. His fantasy point production increased by 20% from 2024 to 2025. And another thing, just to be, you talk about other data points. Ben Johnson just declared he wanted to have the highest scoring offense ever. That's always good when your coach wants to score. I've got Caleb in tier 2. Next, I got Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been extremely consistent. He's number 6 in points per week. He's number 3 in snaps per year. He's coached by Sean Payton, who, of course, coached Drew Brees, one of the best fantasy quarterbacks of all time. So those 3 quarterbacks that are all young, all going into their 3rd year, I took that into consideration. Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix. I have those as tier 2. And
I
then
don't understand, though. Why you have Jared Goff at the top of that?
Not the top.
Okay,
I don't have a top.
That's fine. How in the same tier could you have Bo Nix and Jared Goff? How is that possible? One guy's showed it for 1 year. The other guy's
showed it for 2. He showed it for 2 years.
He showed being really good for 1 year. And
2
he's
years.
coming off of a broken ankle, and you have another guy that has Jared Goff, who does nothing but throw for 4,000 yards and get you 35 touchdowns, and has a incredible offense around him. And I get it. Bo Nix has
Jaden Waddle, Courtland Sutton.
I'm saying
my guy from U of I, Pat Bryant,
receiver from Miami with Waddle, but I don't know.
Dude, the data says that he's taken the number 3 snaps per year in the past 2 years, so he's on the field a lot. So it goes back to my data science method of
he just broke his ankle.
I know, but he's fine. Unless you're right, you need to view the injury reports before you go in the draft. This is assuming, of course, Bo Nix is 100% ready going week 1. From a durability and efficiency perspective, Bo is there and he's ascending. So May, Williams, and Nix are all ascending.
I think your computer should, tell you maybe there should be 7 quarterbacks in one tier. That's a lot of quarterbacks for a tier.
I agree, but that's why I'm saying, and I'll get to that. My last quarterback, and this one was tough for me. I put in Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is number 3 in points per week, number 2 in points per snap, only behind Josh Allen. His problem is the durability aspect. He's taken the 15 most snaps per year. But let's be honest, he scored over 500 points in fantasy in 2024. So it was a tough one to put him in tier 2. I originally had him in tier 3, but I moved him up 1. So I've got 7 quarterbacks in tier 2, and they basically break down to as if you want to go if you want to take one of my quarterbacks in tier 2, you got 3 conservative picks in Goff, Mayfield, and Hurts who have done it consistently for 3 years. You got 3 young guys that are ascending that could maybe end up as number 1 by the end of the year in May, Williams, and Nix. And then you got a guy that is, if you're a gambler and you want to take a quarterback that has shown durability concerns, but when he's on the field, man, he's awfully efficient. That's Lamar Jackson. So those are my 7 quarterbacks in Tier 2. You heard Duke. I took Joe Burrow in one of my leagues last year, and he in the first round, and he kicked my ass. So
listen, Joe Burrow. I came in third last year. We looked it up. I came in third last year with Joe Burrow missing 80% of the season for me. He's boom or bust. If you have Joe Burrow and he stays healthy, you are going to get 40 touchdowns. You're going to get 35 to 40 touchdowns. You're going to get 4,500 yards. But will he stay on the field? And his offensive line is shaky. And if you're fragile, you cannot. If you're a quarterback in the league, the athletes, the people that are, rushing the passer that are 245 pounds that run 4.40s and can knock the snot out of you, even though you're protected as a quarterback compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you just can't take hits. You can't scramble and take a hit. If you scramble and take hits, if you're Jackson Dart, if you're Lamar Jackson, you will miss time. You'll miss time.
Yeah.
There's going to be an ankle. Eventually, there's going to be a knee. Jaden Daniels, he's got knees. He's got elbows. You just can't take hits, and you have to learn. You're not a sissy if you're Eli Manning and you go down before you're going to take a hit. Those guys saw that they wanted to play 16 games, now 17 games, and they did. Why?
Yep.
Because they knew when to go down.
Yeah. To Duke's point about Burrow, the last 3 years, respectively, he's been the 27th best quarterback, the second best, and then the 25th. So does he have obviously he has the potential to be number 1. So, Duke, let's get to Tier 3.
All right, listen, on Tier 3, I actually had Lamar Jackson, and then I crossed it off. I got rid of him.
Okay.
If you look at his stats, he's just not, obviously, we all know he's injury prone, but if you look at his stats, if you want to pull him up the last 3 years while I'm talking, go ahead. But he had a season where he had 41 touchdowns, I think. But outside of that, his yards, and he's never had really good receivers. That's not really his fault. But if you want, go ahead. Tell me his last.
Well, last year he finished 21st.
Right, it was awful.
Okay. In 2024, he finished number 1. In 2023,
he had 41 touchdowns, I think.
He had 500 points in fantasy. It was one of the best fantasy years ever. In 2023, he finished 4th. So he's been 21,
what about
number
the year
1.
Before that?
I don't have 2022. I only did a 3-year sample.
Right. So with a new offensive coordinator, learning a new offense, when you put it in with his ability or lack thereof to stay on the field, with the new offensive coordinator that came from the Bears, who's under 20, I think he's 28 years old, and he's spent 1 year as an offensive coordinator, and we all know he wasn't really the offensive coordinator. He was just learning under our head coach. It's questionable. So at the top end, I think we...
Let me hear your Tier 3s.
Sure. I mean, similar. If I had 7 freaking quarterbacks in my Tier 2, I would have this quarterback in my Tier 2 as well, but it's different.
Listen,
I have Jared Goff. I can't listen. Your analysis is your analysis.
But I want to be clear to the listeners and to you, of course. Like when I say a tier, you can take anybody in that tier. It doesn't matter where they're ranked. And the idea is you'll get 22. Like in Tier 2, you'll get 22 to 25 points.
But there has to be someone at the top of the tier that's better than others. No,
it depends on your personality. Are you conservative? Are you a guy that wants to root for the young guy that he's going to ascend to stardom? Or are you a gambler? Like, that's how I looked at Tier 2 with those 7 quarterbacks. 3 were conservative. 3 were like, okay, I'm rooting for the young guy that he's going to ascend to superstardom. And then the last one was I'm a gambler with Lamar Jackson. So you've got Goff in Tier 3. Okay.
So now I have more. As you're going down the tiers, I have more quarterbacks in the tiers. And the top is Jared Goff.
Yep.
And then I have Drake May. I have Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. I have Jordan Love, and I have Patrick Mahomes. So, if Mahomes wasn't coming off the injury, if he wasn't coming off a year where his receivers were in jail again, I would have Patrick Mahomes probably in Tier 2 or maybe Tier 1. But, he has Andy Reid. He has an amazing offensive coordinator, but they have receivers that, are injury prone, that weigh 145 pounds and spent the summer in prison. So it's very hard to have Mahomes anywhere other than the bottom of Tier 3. but that's not indicative of, as Patrick Mahomes, along with, whether it's Josh Allen or Matt Stafford, he's talent-wise, he's the best quarterback in football. But when you're talking about fantasy, he's at the bottom. So Jared Goff I have at the top. Jordan Love I have in the middle, and Jalen Hurts I have in the middle. And Jalen Hurts is not, he's not even a top 15 quarterback when it comes to talent. And he did win a Super Bowl, but he won a Super Bowl with an amazing defense, with receivers everywhere, with the number one running back. But talent-wise, he's maybe top 15, 16 quarterback. But fantasy-wise, when you're talking about, him getting the 1-yard touchdowns, getting you 22, 24 passing touchdowns, he falls in the middle of tier 3, which is great. And Drake May, if there's anybody that has the ability to be, obviously jump from tier 3 to tier 2, it's Drake May. But they had the easiest schedule out of everybody last year. Now they're going into a difficult schedule. And did he add A.J. Brown having another receiver? Will it help him? Of course. But let's see him do it again before he gets to go into tier 2. You have to. Sorry. And if you're in Boston with your accent, yeah, of course, Drake May's tier 1 probably. You're losing your shit. And probably the same way we feel about Caleb Williams. But let's see him do it another year against defenses that are actually really tough. Are you looking at your biceps right now? What are you doing?
No. Just no.
And that's what happened. All these quarterbacks are in Brock Purdy as well. Brock Purdy, he's not super tall. He's 6'1". I hate to say this because it's such a white thing. He's sneaky athletic, but he is. But he'll get you the 3 touchdowns if they can stay healthy, but that team can't stay healthy. And it's very hard to have him, you have him, if there's any quarterback that could drop out of tier 3 as opposed to bumping up, it's Brock Purdy. There's no question about it, but he's consistently can get you 37 to 3,900 yards and get you the 30 touchdowns. And, same thing with Jordan Love. Jordan Love, he lost some receivers, but he has an amazing offensive coordinator. He's got a team that wants to throw the ball, and you're in a competitive division. But, anytime you're in a division where Minnesota's defense is, triggering downward, the Bears' defense is going to be bad. We know that. And whenever you have, the league has quarterbacks at every position, or with every team. So they're all going to be throwing the ball. So no matter how good the defenses are in that division, whether it's Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, and I'll talk about Kyler Murray later, everyone's going to have 30 touchdowns in this division. Everybody is, including Kyler Murray.
All right. I just want to make one comment on your one quarterback in your tier, and I'll get to Brock Purdy later, of course. Jalen Hurts, just so you know, in the last 3 years, he's finished 9th, and 3rd in fantasy football total points for quarterbacks. So
that's why I have him in tier 3. It's a good tier.
It's
a
if you think that's 3 and not tier 2, that's interesting. That's pretty consistent.
Did he lose his? I mean, he lost his sort of number 1, very angry A.J. Brown receiver, but he lost his best receiver. And let's see where he goes. And again,
we'll see.
He's in tier 3. Tier 3 is good. It's a good neighborhood.
The data says that he's
not Lake Forest, but it's there. It's Deerfield, Highland Park. It's nice.
All right. So for my tier 3 quarterbacks, okay, I've got Dak Prescott. Dak is 11 point. He's number 11th in points per week, number 16 in snaps per year. He got hurt, I think, in 2024 or 2023. I forgot which year. He's 9th in points per snap. He's high volume. He's got probably one of the best wide receiving, duels in Lamb and Pickens. But I got him as solid tier 3.
It's terrible. I disagree. Shame on you.
Okay. Well,
you have 7 quarterbacks in tier 2. You can't find one more spot for Dak Prescott.
That's it, man. I think so. By the way, when I think of tier 3 QBs, you're looking at 20 to 22 points per week. Okay, that's what you should bank. I got Prescott in tier 3.
All right, we should bank on Prescott getting 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns. So
okay, we'll see. The data does not say that in his sample of the last 3 years.
Your data's stupid. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
Next, I got Justin Herbert. He is the epitome of tier 3. He's number 12 in points per week. He's number 11 in snaps per year. He's number 16 in points per snap. I know a lot of us think he's better than he is, but from a fantasy perspective, that's solid in tier 3. He does get Joe Alt back this year, so hopefully his offensive line is better. The next one this is the one that I struggle with not putting in tier 2 is one I fought about, but it's Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's data the past 2 years cannot be disputed. He's number 7 in points per week. He's number 5 in snaps per year. So when he's on the field a lot, when he's on the field, he puts up fantasy points. But given Darnold's, I would say not age, but like his overall track record, I've got him as a tier 3. Number 4, who is, I think, the best player in the NFL, is Patrick Mahomes. But from a fantasy perspective, he is not the same player he was in 2022 and before. He's number 9 in points per week, number 8 in snaps per year, but number 18 in points per snap. So Patrick can stay on the field, all right, and he can give you points, but he's not as efficient as he once was. I have him solidly in tier 3. This one was tough because I know he was the highest scoring fantasy quarterback last year. That's Matt Stafford. But like Duke said in the episode prior, Stafford in 2023 and 2024 was not an elite fantasy quarterback. That's a fact. So overall in that 3-year sample, he's number 10 in points per week. He's number 7 in snaps per year, but number 21 in points per snap. Yeah, he had a great year last year, but the 2 years prior, he was a tier 4 to tier 3 quarterback. The next one, Duke made a good comment on. He is epitome of, again, similar to Herbert, Jordan Love. That's a tier 3 quarterback. He's number 13 in points per week, number 13 in snaps per year, number 14 in points per snap. Like, he's solid tier 3 quarterback. And he also is going to get Tucker Kraft back, so that should only help him. And last but not least, I do have Joe Burrow. So I think we went through the data on Joe Burrow. The bottom line is his durability has to be questioned. But he is number 3 in points per snap. When he's on the field, he's extremely efficient. In 2024, he scored 27 points per week. Just amazing. He was only behind Lamar Jackson. He's probably got, again, similar to Prescott, one of the best wide receiving duels in the NFL in Chase and Higgins. But yeah, I got, Duke got hurt by Burrow last year. I got hurt by Burrow in the big money league. I have Joe Burrow as a tier 3. I'm going to let another team say that he's a tier 1 or tier 2 and draft him. I'm not going to be that guy. Yeah, maybe he'll come back to bite me in the ass. Who knows? But right now, based upon the data, that's where I have Joe Burrow. And those are my tier 3 quarterbacks. I've got Prescott, Herbert, Darnold, Mahomes, Stafford, Love, and Burrow. Again, there's no ranking in those, except for, Burrow's your gambling pick. But like if you need, 20 to 22 points per week in your projections, when you go in that draft room, these are, 7 quarterbacks you can take.
I think a lot of those quarterbacks could be in tier 2.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
You could flip it. I mean, I think your data is basing some of it on, obviously, Joe Burrow's injury history.
Sure.
And Stafford's age and injury history, even though he gets injured but plays through it.
It's not. The Stafford one is based upon a 3-year sample. Yeah, he had a great year last year. I'm talking about I want to not just isolate it to 1 year. I'm looking at a 3-year sample size. He was not a tier 1 or tier 2 quarterback. I'll go to the data. I know you talked about it because you said you had Stanford one of the years. In 2024, Stafford was the 19th ranked quarterback. In 2023, he was the 16th. So, he went from one.
He's got Puka, he's got Devonta, he's got Kyrie Williams running the ball. He's got 3 tight ends that are great.
Don't disagree.
I know. It's tough. It's tough to you take your sample size of 3 years, but then somehow you have to weigh in the fact that you do 45 plus touchdowns.
You do, but if I'm in the draft room, my tier 1 and 2 quarterbacks, I listed 9 of them. I'm taking those 9 quarterbacks ahead of Matt Stafford. That's just me.
Tiers.
Okay.
All right. Listen, tier 4 is different for me. It's hard to rank. I definitely have a bottom of tier 4, but the top is interesting. I can put. You talked about Sam Darnold. I think it's hard for me not to have Baker Mayfield at the top of this list, but Baker, I like him a lot. I love how fired up he gets. I love how he just wants to win. I love that he turned down a 2-year, $100 million contract.
He was insulted.
You know, he's not insulted that he was offered $50 million a year. He's insulted that they didn't offer him a third or
Yeah.
fourth year because other quarterbacks that aren't as good as him. But he lost Evans, but he still has good receivers. He's got an awesome head coach that's an offensive coordinator. So that offense, that ability, if he stays healthy, you know, he'll be on track for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, and it's hard not to. But true that at the top of this ranking, if I had someone at the top, I would like to put Sam Darnold there. I love Sam Darnold, and he had 30, I know for a fact because I had him, he had 35 touchdowns 2 years ago with Minnesota, and he was great last year in Seattle, but he only had 25 touchdowns. I don't know how that was. You know, with that, at the top of this, and it's difficult, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but I have Kyler Murray at the top of this list. And the reason why I have Kyler Murray at the top is his
Wait,
boom.
so Mayfield and Darnold are below Murray?
That is
All right.
correct.
All right.
And the reason I have that, and this is a big if, right? And maybe that's why he's even in tier 4, if Kyler Murray can stay healthy. If Kyler Murray stays healthy, he is going to have more than 30 touchdowns. He's going to have more than 4,000 yards passing. He did it in Arizona with not elite talent. Darnold was the 3rd pick in the draft. Kyler Murray was the 1st pick in the draft. He has more talent, he's an anomaly. The way he can run, the way he has a cannon, and he's not big, but he has a cannon. And he has amazing, obviously, receivers in Minnesota. I have him at the top of the list. And you can mark it, you know, if he's healthy in this division, he will have, playing indoors in a dome, he will have 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns. And I think Sam Darnold had 4,400 yards with the same offense, and he had 35 touchdowns. So look for that. And then, you know, I have Mayfield. Mm-hmm. I have Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. And in this, right in here, this is where Lamar Jackson falls to me. With his ability or non-ability to stay on the field, it's hard for me to have him in a tier 3, and that's why I got him out of that tier 3. You know, is he going to run as much as he always has before? No, I think he's, you know, after being in the league for 8 or 9 years, he's bigger now. He cannot run. He's not as quick as he was. He's not as elusive as he was in year 1, 2, 3. So he's just fallen. And this is where I have younger people. I have Jaden Daniels, but if I was going to do this list completely from top to bottom, Daniels would be at the bottom. I have Trevor Lawrence, who has a great, obviously, offensive coordinator. He finally was able to put up almost 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. And if he can stay with that consistency with his head coach, I'm down with Trevor Lawrence, you know, having a great year. And listen, tier 4, this is not a bad tier to be in. These are all great quarterbacks. And at the bottom of this tier, I have Bo Nix and Jackson Dart. I see Bo Nix and Jackson Dart as being very similar. You know, Jackson Dart had playing.
So you have 8. You have 8 quarterbacks in this tier.
I do.
Okay.
I do, and it's harder as you get lower and lower into these tiers. And this is, you know, kind of my point fantasy-wise. I don't see a very big difference statistically between a lot of these quarterbacks. There's some that could be a bigger boom, but all these quarterbacks are going to be in that neighborhood of 3,500 to 4,000 yards and 25 to 30 touchdowns. That's where I see all these quarterbacks. And why would I made fun of you for having 7 quarterbacks in your tier 2, but these guys are all clumped together. It's, you know, you ever make pasta and you don't boil it properly or you let it sit and they all clump together, you get clumpy pasta. It still can be good. I love pasta. You know, pasta's never bad. This is just clumpy pasta. They're all clumped together, but they're all good. But Jaden Daniels, coming off these injuries, he's way at the bottom of this. And as far as boom, Kyler Murray is that boom. Because I would not be – if he has 32, 33 touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns and 4,400 yards, how could anybody be surprised with that? You can't.
So Duke, I just want to give you one stat, and okay. The last 2 years, do you know who the 8th ranked quarterback was in 2025 and the 8th ranked quarterback in 2024 from a total fantasy quarterback points perspective?
I don't.
Bo Nix. So what do you have against Bo Nix? You got him
I
down.
said
You
tier
have him in.
four is a-
Yeah, but you have him down as seventh best of your tier 4, and he's been the eighth best quarterback in fantasy the past 2 years.
What do I have against him? I don't have anything against him, but what are his stats? What did he do last year?
I don't care. I don't care if he.
You don't care about his stats.
I care about it. That's what I said in the first episode of this in fantasy football strategies. I don't care how he scored. He scored. He's the eighth best scoring quarterback both years respectively. Eighth.
I'm looking at some rankings. They have him 5th or 6th. I mean, there's no question they have him. But if I'm looking at what he did last year, he had 3,900 yards, which is great. And that's what I said. All these quarterbacks in this tier are going to get you between 3,500 and 4,000 yards and potentially 30 touchdowns. But he had 25 touchdowns last year. He had 29 the year before, and he has 4 and 5 rushing touchdowns. So
he scored
I think
300.
He's very comfortably in tier 4.
He scored
which is going to be potentially 3,500 yards to 4,000 yards, 25 to 30 touchdowns, and there it is. And coming off of a broken ankle, I don't know if you'll see him getting 4 or 5, 6 touchdowns rushing.
All right, we'll see. He scored 21 points per week in the last respective years.
I think
he
I
was
nailed
very
that.
consistent.
I nailed him right in the middle of that tier. And this is good. This is a good tier to be in. It's a good tier. It's not a bad tier. The next tier is a bad tier, I assure you. I wouldn't want to be in the next tier.
Just remember, Steve had him in tier 2, Bo Nix. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go with my tier 4. And if you're in this tier, that means you're looking at your quarterback will score you anywhere from 18 to 20 points a week, around there. Okay, 18 to 20 points a week I have. So at first one, again, these are not ranked. Anyone in this will get yet. I've got Trevor Lawrence. 16 and ranked 16 in points per week, ranked 18th in snaps per year, 14th in points per snap. That to me is the top end of a tier 4. I got him in tier 4. I had him last year. He of course played good. Brock Purdy. The thing about Brock Purdy is he's extremely efficient when he's on the field. I think Seda has him every year, and when he gets hurt, then he has his backup who kicks ass like Mac Jones just as well. But Brock Purdy is number 4 in points per snap, so that's why people love him. He's right behind Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in points per snap. But he can't stay on the field. He's number 21 in snaps per year, so you have to think about that. That's why I got him in tier 4. Next one's going to surprise you. I got Jacoby Brissett. Small sample size, but he was number 11th in points per snap. Okay? And he's got McBride, the best tight end in football, and McBride. He's got really good receivers in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. That's one that I debated, but when Brissett's on the field, he's efficient. So that's one I have in tier 4. Next one is Jackson Dart. I'm a huge Jackson Dart fan. The bottom line is the guy runs like his head's cut off, and he's a concussion waiting to happen. Thing is, he's extremely efficient. He's number 8 in points per snap. So if you're gambling on that tier 4 thing, if you're a gambler, with Malik Neighbors, Wendell Robinson, and with Cam Scatterbro coming back, he's one that you may want to gamble with, and he potentially can definitely be up in those higher tiers. I have Dart in tier 4. And then I have a guy that you already know is on my do not draft list. I've seen some fantasy experts say that he's the second ranked quarterback from a projection point of view in their, is Jaden Daniels. When he's not arguing with his mom to sue LSU to get his jersey number back, which is just absolutely ridiculous. He is efficient. He's number 6 in points per snap. He was a top 5 quarterback in 2024, but with that frame and with that offensive line, he takes a beating. I just don't. He's not durable enough, and I'm definitely not gonna waste a high pick on him. I've got him as a tier 4 quarterback, but he's on my do not draft list. Okay.
That's the end of your. How many people were in that tier?
I had 5. So Lawrence, Purdy, Brissett, Dart, and Daniels. Those were them. Yeah. And Duke, maybe now that we're getting towards the end of our tiers, why don't you rattle off your tier 5s, and if you have any quick comments you want to make,
I mean, not my comment. Like I
who are
don't
your tier
disagree
5s?
that Arizona has good receivers,
Yep.
but I thoroughly disagree with having Jacoby Brissett as any type of fantasy quarterback, and he should be do not draft unless he's your, emergency quarterback, because he's going to get hurt. He's going to be bad. He's going to throw interceptions. He's going to get benched. They're going to want to bring in.
That's the one thing, Carson Beck.
Yeah,
will
want to see. Here's the thing. You had Jacoby Brissett. They gave him a new contract just to appease him, and it was like $12-15 million, which is nothing to sneeze at, but for a quarterback, it's nothing. But they're going to want to see what they have, and if they get off to a bad start, they're going to want to start tanking for the quarterbacks next year. And, yeah, I would not. To have Jacoby Brissett in that tier with some of the other quarterbacks you had is pretty unfair to those other quarterbacks. So, tier 5, this is a neighborhood you don't want to live in, but these are not bad quarterbacks. But, again, with this tier, the way I have in my mind the yardage, these are all guys that are going to go for 3,000 yards to 3,500 yards and have 20 to 25 touchdowns, where why even bother drafting them? And look, in our league, remember, there are leagues where you only start one quarterback. Our leagues, we start 2 quarterbacks, so there's a lot more importance on these quarterbacks drafting and having them. But these guys are all going to be somewhere around 3,000 to 3,500 yards and 20 to 25 touchdowns, which what's the point? I have Daniel Jones, Tyler Shock, C.J. Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Bryce Young, and at the very bottom of this, I have Jacoby Brissett. Brissett, Young, can they get you 3,000 yards, 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, 22 touchdowns? Yep. Can Aaron Rodgers get you 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns? I think he can, and we both know he'll probably stay healthy. C.J. Stroud, you know what? He's consistently inconsistent and hard to rely on, even if he has good receivers. And, Tyler Shaw, all these guys, he could bump up to the next tier. We'll see what he does. After his rookie year, he was very good. But you still can't put him in the category of someone, that's going to potentially have 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, because he's just not. It's impossible. And then Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, if he can stay healthy, he's on the edge of that tier. If he can stay healthy, which is a big if, he can get you pretty close to 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, but more likely than not, he's going to be in that category of 3,000 to 3,500 yards and 20 to 25 touchdowns. And, I can't tell you how many points that is in your system. I can't tell how other people rank their points, but I think everyone can, gravitate towards understanding 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns.
Sure.
That's my tier.
Okay, for tier 5, I think here you're looking at a quarterback to score you 15, 18 points per week, and like Duke said, hopefully one of your tier 5s is not one. Hopefully your tier 5 QB is not one of your starting quarterbacks. He's a guy you got on the bench to start when it's a bye time. I've got C.J. Stroud. Stroud had I think he had the 9th highest points when he was a rookie in 2023, but since then he's fallen down quite a bit. This is where I have Kyler Murray. Don't get me wrong. I know how good Kyler Murray could be. Bottom line is the sample size of the past 3 years, he has not been that quarterback. I do not want to risk a pick on him at those higher tiers. I played safe, even though I know he's got Justin Jefferson now. You still got J.J. McCarthy that the Vikings wasted not wasted, but they wasted a very, very high first-round pick on. I think it was number 11 overall. Maybe if Murray screws up just a bit, they're going to throw in McCarthy. I don't know. Next, Duke, I didn't hear you say this, but Geno Smith. Geno Smith is going back to the Jets to be their full-time quarterback. I've got him in tier 5. I got Aaron Rodgers. I've got Bryce Young, and then I have Kirk Cousins. I didn't have Daniel Jones in there just because of his durability concerns, but that's who I have in tier 5. Again, that's
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. If you have to monitor that Las Vegas, like Mendoza could take over that job. But again, if you're down at tier 5, these should not be your starting quarterbacks. Okay.
All right. I'm going to jump into tier 6.
Yeah.
This is so tricky. As far as like talent goes, I have Malik Willis at the top of this. Unfortunately, he took some money to go to Miami where they're seemingly half tanking. They bring in a quarterback that I think has really a lot of talent, but, traded away their number one receiver, and I don't know who he's going to throw to. So I have Malik Willis at the top of this, but not, based on his talent, just, fantasy. I have Cam Ward, who was the number one pick last year, but, Cam Ward, he's serious, but, it's questionable. I question a lot on him. So, Cam Ward, is he going to get you 25 to all these guys, 2,500 to 3,000 yards and about 20 touchdowns? Yeah, but that's not going to win you anything. And I have Geno Smith in here. I like Geno Smith, but he's also, an interception factory where he's going to get 20 to 25 interceptions, especially with the Jets. I have Tua up here. If Tua can stay healthy, he has receivers to throw to. He obviously has a great running back. Tua, out of all of these quarterbacks, I would take Tua as a flyer that, potentially can get you 3,500 to 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns because of that offense. But can he stay healthy? His shoulder, his hip, his concussions, everything. It's kind of scary. And at the bottom of this, I have a combination of Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. I like them both, but, that Raider offense just needs time.
Okay.
And I have one more quarterback. My tier 7, I have one more quarterback. But,
all right, let me go through my 6 real quickly. I got Daniel Jones there. The guy was an MVP candidate to start the year last year, but his durability concerns. They lost Pittman, too, as a receiver, though they got some fast guys on the outside. I got the guy from New Orleans. I think it's Show. I don't know how to pronounce it, maybe. But yeah, I got Malik Willis in there, too. When he did play for Green Bay, he was incredibly efficient. I got Tua there. I have no idea what's going to happen with Michael Penix. I bought the Tua Kool-Aid and with Tyreek Hill and Jaden Waddle 1 year. It doesn't work out. Tua gets hurt a lot, too. He's a concussion waiting to happen. Those are the 4 that I have at tier 6. Hopefully, if I'm taking one of those guys, it's because, again, I got to start somebody that's on a bye. But hopefully I have a tier 5 guy ready to go there. Who do you got in tier 7?
I just have one. I have one quarterback left, and it's a combination of anybody that throws for the Cleveland Browns. All
right, I'm going to put Sanders for now.
It's god awful.
Yeah,
and I think if you put Shedeur Sanders on the Rams and he had a great, head coach with great receivers, he wouldn't be terrible. But unfortunately, and Deshaun Watson, I don't know if you put him on anywhere what he can or cannot do from all of his injuries, from his history of, I'm not even making light of the massage and all that. I just don't know how you could want him as your quarterback.
Yeah.
In fantasy or real life, I'm stunned.
Yeah, in tier 7, I've got 2. I've got Cam Ward. Just one bit of data on Cam Ward. He had the lowest points per snap last year in the NFL out of the top fantasy quarterbacks. It was 0.23. So out of all 32 quarterbacks that we listed, Cam Ward was the lowest. He was on the field a ton. Okay, he was very high in number of snaps, but when he's on the field, he's just not efficient from a fantasy perspective. I've got him down to tier 7, of course. Then I've got Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I think anywhere he goes, he would be bad. I'm interested to see if Deshaun Watson gets that job, what happens. But those are the 32 quarterbacks. Wow, Duke, we got through it. So I think what I can do is maybe I could, instead of having people reach out to us, I can maybe even put this on a slide and post it on our Instagram account. Just go from Duke versus Steve and see how it does.
I like it. It was fun.
I think it's we got a lot of disagreements. So come end of the year, I have this up. We will see total points, who ranked the right tiers. It should be fun.
I can't wait. What's going to be better, a computer analysis system or a moron? We'll see who wins.
Are you the moron?
I'm the moron.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I am the moron.
No, good stuff. Okay, since we're talking about quarterbacks, why don't we go, Duke? I was thinking that we can have a little fun. Talk about our top 5 QBs of all time. You want to do that? go. We'll start off with
you
your.
told me to compile a list, Steve. So yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna do that. I've got a list.
All right. You want to go? Let's go back and forth. You start off with your fifth best. We're gonna go from fifth to first.
All right. So my rankings are truly based on quarterbacks that I've seen play the last 40 years. So
Yep.
anybody before 1980, generally speaking, is not on this list. I was just too young to grasp. So, whether it's Terry Bradshaw or Fran Tarkenton, going back to Otto Graham, everybody, how can we put those people on the list? So my number 5 was my favorite quarterback from my childhood. He played through the early to mid 80s. That was his high point. Can you guess who that is? But just by me saying the years that he played?
Either Montana or Marino.
No, Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts was awesome. He never made a Super Bowl, but the Chargers, through the, 82, 83, 84, 85, their offense was amazing. He had, John Jefferson, Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow, Chuck Muncie as a running back. This is all just in my mind, like just things that I remember. And the offense was great. Fouts was awesome. He had an amazing arm. The way he would lead receivers, they talked about it. He could just lead receivers to the ball. His ability to anticipate was remarkable. And yeah, I have him at number 5, and he's just not. He's a lot of people know him and remember him, but he should, because they didn't win a Super Bowl. He's just not remembered the same as other quarterbacks.
Love Dan Fouts. Love him. Probably the best uniforms in all sports was that the era when he was with the Chargers. So number 5, I think that's a good one. I don't have any disagreements with that. Number 5, I have Joe Montana.
Trying to be controversial.
I'm not. Joe Montana, I have number 5. I thought, stats wise, he was very good, not exceptional, but he won 3 Super Bowls. He had probably the best offensive mind in the history of the game with Bill Walsh, and he ran that West Coast offense. Incredibly accurate quarterback, incredibly smart. Was blessed to play with probably arguably the best wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. Great second receiver in Taylor. Great running back in Craig. Great tight end in Clark. I have Montana at number 5. I know people could be shocked he's not higher, but that's where I got him. All right. Duke,
I just had to double check because Joe Montana won 4 Super Bowls. Not
4 Super Bowls.
Shame on you.
4 Super Bowls.
He won 4 Super Bowls.
Now
do you have to move him up?
No, I don't. I still have him at 5. Who do you got at 4?
At 4, I have Dan Marino. And Dan Marino, probably the best arm ever. And if I was going to have a top 6 list, I would have John Elway at 6. Those two probably have the best arms of all time. John Elway, the strongest, probably the biggest fastball in the history of football. He was drafted in the first round to, play baseball. He was just remarkable. But Marino, it's funny. Is he better than the rest of the quarterbacks on this list? Maybe, but he didn't win a Super Bowl. He got to 1 Super Bowl his second year and then never got back after that. But statistically, I don't have the stats in front of me, but playing in the 80s where guys just didn't throw for 4,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns with consistency, he was throwing 5,000 yards and having 45 touchdowns. He was insane, remarkable. He's just, he's the very best.
Love Dan Marino. His acting in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is just awesome.
Very good.
But the thing that I always think about when I think of Dan Marino was he beat the 85 Bears. Not only did he beat them, he beat the shit out of them. Like, Buddy Ryan's like, okay, I'm just going to beat the crap out of him and knock him to the ground. Marino's like, yeah, go ahead. By the time you get there, I'll already have the ball out of my hands. And, Duper and Clayton, he destroyed the Bears that night. And I think, I don't know if the Bears were partying in South Beach or Miami too much that week, filming the Super Bowl Shuffle. They did have Steve Fuller quarterbacking that night. But I remember that. And I probably one of the biggest regrets in sports or biggest disappointments was the Bears not getting a rematch in their Super Bowl. They had to play the Patriots, which was a joke. But
yeah, it should have been the Dolphins.
It should have been the Dolphins just so that we could have got revenge. But Dan Marino, number 4, no issues with that. Number 4, I have Peyton Manning. So Peyton Manning, his longevity, he really knew how to stuff stats. You know, it's a big stat stuffer. He was
Get the hell out of here, stat stuffer. That's ridiculous.
he was fortunate to play the Bears to get his first Super Bowl. He destroyed the Bears in that Super Bowl. Like, if you look at the underlying statistics and the data of that Super Bowl, it was a blowout. And then he won another Super Bowl at Denver. I got he one time the reason why I didn't have Peyton higher, it was hard for him to get over the hump when Brady was in the AFC. I got Peyton Manning number 4.
I mean, I take offense that you say Peyton Manning was a stat stuffer. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Going to my third, I'm just going to go into it because it's the same. I have Peyton Manning at number 3. Peyton Manning's my favorite quarterback of all time. I loved him. I loved watching him. I loved listening to his cadence. I loved everything about him, and hated the fact. And I hate when people talk about how he won his last Super Bowl with Denver, but he didn't really earn it. He was so injured. He had a neck injury. He had spinal fusion in his neck.
Well.
He just lost the ability to throw, not because he got old, because he had such a severe injury he could not do it. But he still was able to lead that team to winning a Super Bowl. But if you literally look at the year before his stats with Denver, he was 40-plus touchdowns 2 years in a row, 4,000, 5,000 yards passing. He was awesome. He got hurt. He didn't get old. He could have done it for another 5 years if he didn't have that injury. But he played every year. He never got hurt. He was just everything. He's awesome. And head-to-head, New England was a better franchise than the Colts. The Colts were a joke. Before he got there, the year he left, they were a joke. They plummeted. They had the first pick in the draft to get Andrew Luck after that. So if you look at the viability, the importance of a player, just look at the before and after of what happened to the Colts when Peyton wasn't there. Peyton Manning's everything. He's awesome.
Okay. I had him at 4. You had him at 3, so we're close on that. Number 3, my number 3 is Aaron Rodgers. I just think Aaron, from an accuracy perspective, intelligence, you talk about quarterbacks that know how not to get hit. He was just like watching him live, week in, week out. I have him at number 3. I just thought he was the best. I know Chris Collinsworth would spooge all over him every time he came on the TV, but Aaron had some good weapons too. No, make no doubt about it. But from a pure quarterback play, I have him as number 3. He only won one Super Bowl, and that's one knock on him. I get it, but I've got him as my 3rd best quarterback.
And that's fine to have him there. I mean, he's in a top 10, top 12 for sure, if nothing else. But it's eras. You're talking about playing in an era where the quarterbacks began to take less hits when he was in his early to mid 30s, which gave him a lot more longevity. But it's also just not fair to players like Marino, Fouts, and other players that were great in the 80s. It's just what we're seeing now versus it was 35, 40 years ago. And if you compare, Dan Fouts, Marino, Aaron Rodgers, who knows who's better. But, what would Marino do if he played, in this era? Would he have 60 touchdowns? Probably.
I don't know.
He'd probably have a year where he had 60 touchdowns.
I would say, and we'll get through the full 5, but I just, based upon what I've seen, I had Aaron number 3. Who you got at 2?
I have Joe Montana at number 2, and, the 4 Super Bowls. And was Montana helped by having, a head coach, Bill Walsh, that basically invented, the offensive systems that we're looking at today? Was he helped by having, John Taylor, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig at running back? Yeah, of course. But he was just, it's undeniable, the 4 Super Bowls, how he led those teams. The year he basically got kicked off the team. I mean, it was an interesting situation in the 80s where Joe Montana was not losing it, but they had Steve Young waiting and waiting, and they just had to pull the trigger, and they let him go. And when they let him go, he went to the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs were not a very good team. They were average. I think they had Todd Blackledge as their quarterback, and they didn't have great receivers. He came in, and he got them to the championship game. And Joe Montana, and remember, this is a different time. Quarterbacks got the shit beat out of them. Nutrition isn't what it is today. Supplements. Sure. I'm going to say it like this. Can you see my fingers? Supplements were not the same in the 80s as they are today to give longevity. HGH, steroids, don't even get me started. And good for them. I would be taking it too if I could continue playing and make $50, $60 million a year. But Joe Montana played in a time when if you were a quarterback at 32 or 33 years old, it was pretty much a wrap. Not because he didn't take care of himself, but science wasn't where it was. And just look at the hits that Joe Montana took, and it was a gnarly time to play.
Yeah, I had Joe at 5, and you obviously have him at 2, so we're in the neighborhood. I totally agree with everything you're saying. So this is really interesting how we're going to end this, because I thought we were going to have the same top 2. Number 2, I have Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes won 3 Super Bowls, and his ability to elevate talent around him is some of the things I've never seen on a football field. And when you're watching a game and he's going to get the ball at the end, you have the utmost confidence that he's going to make it happen. I've never seen anything like it. I just think Mahomes is up there, and I don't think he's done. I think as long as Andy Reid stays in charge there and they do a little bit better drafting, we'll see what happens this year. I've got Mahomes as the number 2 QB of all time.
He just, he's a fierce competitor. He's obviously great. I think that he has been helped a little bit by being with Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. I don't think there are very few quarterbacks that can supersede the team they've been bestowed upon.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning was able to, whatever horrifyingness, can I say that? I don't even know if that's a word, but that's what it is. Joining the Colts, joining that organization. Yeah. It didn't matter who his coordinator was. It didn't matter what the team was. He was able to turn that into, a great organization all by himself.
Duke, he had Marvin Harrison. Hold on. He had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne.
They did, but Peyton also, those guys had Peyton Manning. I'll just say that.
Well, yeah. But
I'll just say that. They had Peyton Manning throwing to him, and don't know the cart before the horse with that. And, of course, great receivers. All great quarterbacks, everybody on this list, all teams that won multiple Super Bowls had great players around them, whether it's the Steelers of the 70s that won 4 Super Bowls, they're Hall of Famers everywhere. If you look at the 49ers teams, there's Hall of Famers everywhere.
Who did Mahomes have? Who did Mahomes have?
And I will say this, and this is where where the top of my list is. Tom Brady is the number 1 quarterback on my list.
Before we get to Brady, who did Mahomes have that you thought was so awesome on the outside?
He has the number 1 tight end of all time.
You think Travis Kelce's the number 1 tight end of all time? Is that because you love Taylor Swift? I mean, seriously. You think he's the number 1 tight end of all time?
Travis Kelce?
Have you ever heard of a guy called Mike Ditka?
Travis Kelce changed, along with Gronkowski, changed the I think Gronkowski's the number 1 tight end of all time. And I love Kellen Winslow from the Chargers.
Tony Gonzalez.
Travis Kelce's in the top 3. So, yes, having Kelce and having Tyreek Hill at that period of time, absolutely. But Patrick Mahomes is awesome. There's no question. He's the fiercest competitor maybe ever, along with Marino at that position. But he still has to keep going.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah,
I think number 1,
Tom Brady played with the least amount to get to where he's at.
Yeah, a bunch of small white guys like Edelman and Welker
and small black receivers.
Troy Brown. You're right. He is. I have him at number one too. He won 7 Super Bowls. He only lost to Eli Manning twice because of their defensive line, and Eli's pretty clutch.
I think it's 6 Super Bowls. I don't think it's 7.
It's not 7?
I don't know.
Is it 6?
What's
7?
it? I don't know. 6, 7, 5 with New England, 1 with Tampa. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe it's 6. Why did I think it was 7? Yeah, I'll have to check that out. And yeah, we both at least we agreed on that. We both have Brady at 1. You didn't have Mahomes in your list, which is surprising to me.
Because Mahomes isn't done yet. He's not a finished product.
Okay.
And
you didn't have Rodgers on your list.
No, I don't.
Okay, I didn't have.
You're talking about the top 5 of all time for 40 years, and it's not the top 5 from the last 20 years. It's the top 5 from the last 40 years of watching, and you can't just have everybody that's played in the last 20 years. And Dan Marino and Dan Fouts, they're in there. I assure you, they're in there.
All right.
Watch the highlights, kiddos.
What kiddos? Okay, so we got 2 of the 5. We had this. We each had 3 on the same list, just different ranked.
I think a lot of people are going to have Brady and Montana and Manning somewhere in there, and it's recency bias. But again, watching Marino, if anybody wants to watch, I don't know if it's the 84 season or 85 season, somewhere in there of what Dan Marino did.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that offense. Holy shit.
Yeah, the year before the Bears won the Super Bowl, he had it was elite. All right. Well, that's good. I'd love to get – I know we're going to get some feedback from our friends, but I'd love to get some listener feedback on your top 5 QBs of all time. Post it on social media. Send us an email. I'd love to see what you think. Duke had some old school guys. I had some more newer guys, but love to see what you think. Duke, you got anything on Daddy Diary? I mean, it's...
I don't. Not this week. I have worked my ass off the last, month, 2 months. I'm just no Daddy Diaries, but my kids got to see the restaurant. They love it, and that's
awesome.
Yeah, they love it.
Good. I don't have anything to. I mean, I drove Brandon back to Tuscaloosa on Tuesday night. I drove all through the night. It was 12 hours straight. But I think I was talking to you in the car when I did it. Remember, you're going to drive all the way through? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird move. I would have left early in the morning as opposed to late at night.
Well, I wanted to time it because he had to be at the fraternity at 9 a.m. to move his stuff in. So, I thought, okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just would have left early in the morning, got a hotel that night, wake up 6:30, 7, have a great maybe free breakfast at a hotel, and you drive 10 minutes to the fraternity house, and there you are.
Dude, have you seen these hotels and as you're driving in the rural areas of Florida? It's like the stuff you see on, forensic files and stuff like that. Chopped up bodies and bad. No way I was stopping off at a hotel to go there. No way.
All right. Hey, interesting story. Driving to Arizona. Doe and I are driving for school, and we didn't want to spend the money, so we sleep at a rest stop. We literally pull over at a rest stop and wake up the next morning. There's no internet or anything, and we open up the newspapers, and this is not a funny story. We read that Michael Jordan's father was murdered sleeping at a rest stop.
Yes.
And that was the last time we ever slept at a rest stop.
Great story. That's what I actually told that to Brandon. I said, if we need to sleep somewhere, we'll pull over at a rest stop. I don't think these truckers are tough guys. No one's going to hurt us, or something like that. So, anyway, well, that was it's a good episode. I'm gonna try to find a way to post Steve versus Duke. I'm gonna do it via PowerPoint slides. I'm gonna get them up on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And then we'll let the listeners, hey, if they want to use our stuff instead of Matthew Berry, all these other chumps that are getting paid money to rank stuff. Nah, all you need is Steve and Duke, and more importantly, probably Steve, to win your fantasy football league.
All right. Hey, Steve, not to cut you off, but I've got to go open a restaurant. I've got another event to do for another 12 to 14 hours today.
All right, man. Well, thanks for tuning in.
F my life.
Thanks for tuning in.
Naples. Living in Naples. I'm working 12 hours. You're going to the fucking pool today.
It looks like it's going to be in the 90s today with no rain, so I'm probably going to do that. All right, we're out. Thank you guys for joining in. Next week will be running backs. Can't wait to shit all over Duke's list there.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.